What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Bible Bites, where you're getting Bible truth line by line in context in 5-minute lessons. Let's rock. Now, we left off with Romans 9:17, and we were kind of walking through God's mercy and God's compassion and how he decides who they fall upon, right? But what we really left off with at the end of that verse was seeing that Jesus was the one talking to Moses back during the golden calf incident, right? Jesus as the Lord, meaning Jesus transcends, is not bound by time. His plans are timeless. That's why you can trust them. But we're going to keep going. All right, let me turn my page. And we're moving into Romans 9:18. Now, Paul declares here that because of these precedents, we should see that God decides who receives mercy and who he hardens. But remember, God, Paul has already shown us, extends mercy to all the world, because all the world was made guilty through the law. If all the world is guilty, then whomever God chooses to save is saved by mercy. That's a requirement. We've already shown that. So if they were hardened, well, they already chose to be hard before they ever got the call to salvation. We were already choosing to be hard against God. Remember, our minds are at enmity, at warfare against God before salvation. But think back to Pharaoh, right? He was fully offered a chance to repent before God hardened his heart. Remember that. So again, the entire world is guilty before God, meaning God sparing anyone just because that's a mercy, because all are judged to death. But God's mercy, it always comes with a sacrifice. Think of Pharaoh and the firstborn sons and all the plagues to his kingdom. Think of the Jews killed for the golden calf incident, right? 3,000 slain in the wilderness going buck wild, and the rest were plagued, and they were let to go into the promised land anyway. So the only need for mercy comes when offense toward God occurs, because we do not glorify, nor thank, nor believe in his word, which manifests ungodly minds, which turn into unrighteous, sinful actions. Romans 1, right? So God offers salvation to all people. And look, just some will accept and some will not. Those who will not, they will be used to save and establish his believers, though, right? That's why Paul tells us God will have mercy on whom he chooses, right? Who meet his condition of believing in Jesus, and whomever he needs, he's going to harden their heart after they refuse his call, like Pharaoh in order to free Israel. That's how he frees us. All right, let's go. Romans 9:19. Now, Paul pre-counters an argument, right? I love this because remember, Paul's writing letters before he ever sees people. He knows how they're going to think. And he says, y'all would think, why does he find us at fault then? Who has resisted his will ever? I mean, he says he hardens who he wants to harden, right? That's Pharaoh was hardened. A portion of Israel was slain by Moses after they hardened their heart. But notice, who has resisted his will? That's important text, right? God's will. We've seen they're called works according to his purposes. And in both Exodus cases, God's purpose was to glorify his name by freeing his people. So the only people resisting the will of God are people who do not want God's people free. Ooh. That's some context right there. Let me say that again. The only people resisting God's will are people who do not want God's people free. Wow. Okay. So if a person hardens themselves, God will push against their will to effect freedom for his people. Golly, man. Okay. I'm tripping on this one. Okay. Romans 9:20. Now, Paul asks the reader, who are you to question God's wisdom and judgment, right? Again, showing God's sovereignty and authority. And Paul asked, who art thou that repliest against God? Now, what are they replying against? Again, the chapter has switched to Jews and their nation, and specifically about the seed coming from Isaac, so the whole world could receive the promise. And we appear to see this scenario where Israel came first, right, with getting God, but they lost their status and they let Gentiles access Christ and salvation. And now, in this verse, Paul's reminding his countrymen that God does not play favorites with men, right? He's no respecter of persons. Only true circumcision gets his respect. That's Romans 2. And he seems to be showing them that, like Pharaoh and the golden calf Jews, God will raise up and he will cast down whom he decides to bring his people freedom and himself greater glory. Israel apparently was raised up and cast down. But again, casting down happens after self-hardening. All right, I'm going to stop here. I want to keep going, but I'm going to stop here because like the last 3 videos, I have gone over 5 minutes like crazy. So I need to rein it back in so I can keep my promise, 5-minute lessons. But I just get excited, man. Most of them, I have not broke 10 minutes yet, though. One video I did over 10, but I'm gonna keep this one light, guys. Just think about it. We're gonna keep rocking. Romans 9. It's just my favorite, man. It just clarifies so much. So I'm excited to keep sharing with you. I will talk to you next time. This is Bible Bites, and we are out of here.